Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
So I want to welcome everybody. We're very happy that JD agreed to do this so graciously. And those of you who have experienced her Dharma talks before know what a dynamic, wonderful teacher she is. So very, very, very pleased. So I'm going to read JD's biography, her glowing biography. JD Doyle serves as a core teacher at the East Bay Meditation Center and has served as a board member and the co-founder of LGBTQI Meditation Group. JD completed the Spirit Rock Meditation Center Teacher Training Program and was in the Dedicated Practitioner Program and the Community Dharma Leader Program. JD has practiced Buddhism since 1995 in the U.S., Thailand, and Burma for over 25 years. They worked as a public school teacher focusing on issues of equality and access. JD holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Cornell University and a master's degree in language and literacy from Sociocultural studies from the University of New Mexico. JD identifies as gender non-conforming. They are committed to celebrating the diversity of our human sangha, addressing the impact of racism on our communities, expanding concepts of gender, and living in ways that honor the sacredness of Earth. JD, you're most welcome to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Richard. It's always just such a joy to be here with all of you who have been practicing for so long and so much dedication. So I'm just really grateful to be here. Yes, it is really a gift to have this time together for community, for grounding and presence. And we all know that we can have those intentions and then the world will arise in the way that it does. So we will kind of create this container together and see what will unfold. So what I would like to do right now is we'll do a meditation. So if you need to just move a little bit before we start, and I'm going to include in the meditation the land acknowledgement and then the three refuges, and then we'll go into some silence. And so at the beginning of the meditation will be some words around how we take refuge, including the land acknowledgement. Jeff said that I graduated from the Spirit Rock Teacher Training Program, and that happened in September. And instead of getting certificates, which I guess Spirit Rock is sending to us, but they gave each of us a bell, which if you've been to Spirit Rock, this is the mini bell from the hall. So, and so it's quite lovely. And so it's a beautiful connection to both Spirit Rock and the lineage and the practice. And so I feel so honored to have this little, and it's also sort of funny, it's like I get to be like the mini me, kind of the spirit, the bell thing here. So we'll start our meditation. So starting off, we want to acknowledge the land that we're on. The land that I'm on here in Oakland is Ohlone land. Just remembering that wherever we are, we're connected to land that has been tended and stewarded since time immemorial by indigenous people who continue to have an intimate relationship with the land. And we offer this acknowledgement to our indigenous community members, not only to honor and respect their knowledge and wisdom of land-based practices that are so sorely needed right now, but also to bring to the forefront histories that have been suppressed or desecrated that we want to uphold and honor and respect. And we come here together as connected beings, connected to the earth, connected to each other, connected to our ancestors, historical, cultural, and honoring all of those who have supported us in the past so that we can be here now. Gratitude for the wisdom, the struggles, and the courage of those who come before us. And bringing to mind the wisdom of the Buddha. When we come to practice, we take refuge in the Buddha. The Buddha can be considered an inspiration, somebody who during their lifetime practiced and awakened to the possibility to be free from greed, free from hatred, and free from ignorance. And the Buddha can also be considered as that capacity that we each have within us, those seeds that we can water to lessen the hold of greed, to lessen the hold of hatred, and to remove the veils of ignorance. So today, as we practice together, we can turn towards those capacities that we have. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, when we take refuge in the Buddha, we express trust in our capacity to walk in the direction of beauty, truth, and deep understanding based on our own experience in our practice. And then bringing to mind the second refuge, the refuge of the Dhamma. Coming home to this body as it is in this moment, as a representation of the Dhamma, the way things have come to be. Not the way we wish it to be, the way that we want to control and make it based on our likes and dislikes, but meeting the moment and the world with as much wisdom and compassion as we can. The Dhamma can be thought of as the Buddha's teachings, the natural order of things. Thich Nhat Hanh says, when we take refuge in the Dhamma, we enter the path of transformation, the path to end suffering. And the third refuge is the refuge of sangha. Sangha is all of us who gather today to practice, to turn towards ourselves and each other, to what it means to be alive in this moment, in community. Remembering this lineage of practitioners for over 2,500 years, since when Buddhism started in Southeast Asia and traveled around the planet to land here today in our community, the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Honoring all those in the past who practiced together, supported each other, remembering we live in this interdependent web. And that in turn, our actions support not only each other here, but ripple out in all directions and support many beings. Thich Nhat Hanh says, when we take refuge in sangha, we focus our energies on developing a community that dwells in mindfulness, harmony, and peace. So during this meditation period, just allowing the three refuges, the thoughts of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha to support us in these turbulent times, and however that may look for you. We can begin by coming home to ourselves, to this body, this breathing body, this earth, air, fire, water, body. The invitation is to practice in a way that allows you to become intimate with yourself, with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. I want to end this meditation period with a poem by Adrienne Marie Brown, which is called A Radical Gratitude Spell. And she starts by saying, this is a spell to cast upon meeting a stranger, a comrade, or a friend working for social and or environmental justice and liberation. So this is a radical gratitude spell. You are a miracle walking. I greet you with wonder in a world which seeks to own your joy and your imagination. You have chosen to be free every day as a practice. I can never know the struggles you went through to get here, but I know you have swum upstream, and at times it has been lonely. I want you to know I honor the choices you made in solitude, and I honor the work you have done to belong. I honor your commitments to that which is larger than yourself and your journey to love the particular container of life that is you. You are enough. Your work is enough. You are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here. and I am grateful. Thank you all for your practice. I am really grateful that you all are here and that we get to spend this day together. It's such a precious thing to put down, all of the machinations of the mind about what's important and what we need to take care of in order to arrive and to be here, and to focus on how do we sustain ourselves? How do we resource ourselves? How do we show up in this time? And one of the ways that I found that to be so true is in community and in the practice of the Dharma. So I wanted to start this talk up. I wanted to give a little talk before we go to 15 minutes overview of kind of what it feels like we're doing today together in community. And I really wanted to share this inspiration from, I know many of you probably read it a month or so ago when John Lewis died, and there was this beautiful piece in the New York Times. And so I wanted to read a little bit from that. In July, it was July. He says, "While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people, motivated simply by human compassion, laid down the burdens of division. Around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand and respect for human dignity. That is why I had to visit Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, though I was admitted to the hospital the following day. I just had to see and feel it for myself that after many years of silent witness, the truth is still marching on. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring." I read this and I think about, as we get towards the end of life, and I only hope that when I'm at that point that I can be as gracious in my words and my thoughts as John Lewis. That, at the end, he's relaying not about himself, but about others. And he says, I want you to know how much you inspired me. I mean, this is from somebody that we know had struggled tremendously in so many ways, and that many might say had not even seen the fruition or the fruit of those struggles, just like so many of us who, have been involved in struggling around sexual orientation or gender or other forms of struggles in our lives, and that we come around again to see that the world is still fraught with divisions and hatred, and There are people out there who are trying to take away our dignity and our rights. And what John Lewis says in this is that we can be motivated by human compassion. We can be motivated by love and really demonstrate this commitment to peace, to understanding. And then that conviction, that is something that others can't take away from us. That we will get, discombobulated and disoriented and assaulted, if you will, in so many different ways, verbally, emotionally, physically even. But this commitment to this beauty that we each hold individually and that we can hold collectively is greater than all of us. And that's what the Buddha was referring to, with this idea of the sangha, of our community, of coming together in community. Because it's so easy to feel isolated. It's so easy to feel othered. It's so easy to just think that we're separate and we have to fight each other for these little bits and pieces. And yet, there is another framework that exists. It's true. There is a framework where there's a hierarchy and some people get more and some people get less. And even despite or within or around that framework, there is a way that we can show up for each other that is beyond that simplistic notion. Because as John Lewis is telling us, that we all know that on the days of our last breath, it doesn't matter if we live in a big house. It doesn't matter if we have 3 or 4 cars. Just that sense of our connection to ourselves and our own beauty and each other. Like what Adrienne Marie Brown said in that poem, this sense of like, I honor your commitment to that which is larger than yourself and your journey to love the particular container of life that is you. And sometimes that's the hardest thing that we can do, is to love this particular container of ourselves. That is us. I know that for myself in this society that has given me so many messages throughout my life that I should be other than who I am, that it's really a struggle to continue to be loving. And also knowing that, as I come to a certain age and not pushing so hard against all those outside definitions, that there is a way that I can come home to this one here without having to worry so much about how other people are portraying me. And to me, a big piece of that, honoring and loving this journey of myself and in community, is the practice of kindness. And it's not a very sexy practice. It's not a very much like bells and whistles kind of practice. It is part of this practice, though, that really situates ourselves in community, in the collective, outside of this idea that I am an individual who pulls myself up by the bootstraps and I will, climb the ladder to success and dun, 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 here I come. Because we all know that you're not there alone, that all of our actions have impacts, and that in each moment, the choices that we make for our actions ripple out in so many different directions. And so this practice of contentment, of kindness, is so important for us to know what it feels like when we're kind. Not in a way that we're judging or like, oh, but just to really get that embodied somatic understanding of what it means. Like when the Buddha says that, we cling, like we're out of fear, like this is going to be taken away from me. I need to hold on to it as much as I can. And then that sense of what it feels like when I'm generous, whether that generosity is a smile or a kindness or a call to a friend, or that generosity is larger in some way. No matter how we are, just that sense of what it means to cultivate that sense of our connection. One of the favorite quotes I have from Richard Baker Roshi, who was one of the people who started the Buddhist Peace Fellowship. He says he has all these blessings, and he has one of his blessings that I like is like, I vow to, when I am honored, to go back to my vegetable garden and give due to, oh gosh, I should have had this one out here, but honor those who had really supported me, which is my vegetable garden, just that sense of like honor, like I got all this acclaim and this pride, but really, how would I be without these vegetables? And so in this place of kindness, I think in community, we can begin to see and begin to train ourselves away from these habit patterns of mind that are so strong that we know that historically and evolutionarily, we have this negativity bias where our mind wants to look for the problem. And we can begin to turn with our practice and to remember what it feels like to see like, oh, right, that I don't really like that. And it feels like, and feel the contraction, and then begin to practice and be like, well, what is it that I can cultivate in this moment that I can resource myself with? Because it's not that those things will go away. It's just that we'll learn how to resource ourselves in this place of struggle, because there certainly is enough languaging and enough messages out there that are extremely challenging and difficult these days if we tune into the airwaves or the social media. And then also within this, there's this place of greater knowing of how each of us can show up as part of this collective, a part of the community, and how we can support each other through this. And so one of the practices that I think that is really helpful is this practice of contentment, which I think is part of this practice of kindness. Because if we are in the grips of what the Buddha says of the craving, always wanting it to be more, we don't actually take that pause and cultivate the gratitude and generosity for that which we actually have. So I just want to read a few different quotes about contentment to sort of orient ourselves to this way of being in community. Sulak Saraksana, who is a Thai Buddhist monk and economist, says contentment is a radical act. And he said that at a fundraiser that we had for the East Bay Meditation Center. And he said it's a radical act because we are choosing not to strive to get more. So our orientation towards contentment, not as like resignation, but just to honor that with what we have. And the Buddha in the Dhammapada says, health is the greatest gift, so it's a gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. So being able to kind of be in that place of like, what is it that I actually can be grateful for? In Judaism, the Book of Proverbs says, contentment is a feast without end. Oh my gosh, that's a high bar for me. A feast without end. And in Islam, they say contentment is the greatest door that one enters to Allah. It is the source of tranquility for the worshiper and paradise on earth. So this orientation to being here with our community and not looking to have it be better or something other than. And Socrates says, one who is not contented with what they have would not be contented with what they would like to have. Kind of like the Buddha, right? If we can't like find it here, we're just going to be looking, and then when we get something else, we want the next thing. And so, we're invited on this path. We're on this path to practice not so that we can get better and be on this like success ladder, but to realize our interconnectedness, our network, our mutuality. And so that we can be with each other in that and cultivate this kindness and joy that we're focusing on today through these relationships with ourselves, knowing ourselves and learning about ourselves in community with each other, so that we have that support to remember what's important when we get assaulted by all of these other messages about how we should be in the world. So that's part of the beauty of being together today here for a day of practice, is to orient and reorient and come around to practice like that. So thank you for your kind attention.
We're going to have about a 30-minute meditation period. I'll give some instructions at the beginning, the end, and then we'll have silence in the middle. The Buddha has invited us to practice in any position, so you're welcome to do standing meditation or seated meditation or lying down meditation or even movement meditation, if that's what feels called for you at any point. Okay, so here we go. So finding a posture that allows you to be both alert and relaxed. And remembering that our meditation practice, as Pema Chodron says, isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and becoming something better. It's about befriending who we are. So during this meditation practice, the invitation is to cultivate this kind awareness, this loving awareness, this quality of loving kindness that the Buddha has pointed to as one of the ways that we can relate to ourselves and to others through a lens that connects rather than others. So during this meditation, I invite you, in whatever way feels appropriate for you, to cultivate this quality of kindness, friendliness towards yourself during the meditation. Knowing that during the meditation, things will arise, pass away, thoughts, stories, memories, plans. And the invitation is to meet each moment with as much kindness as possible, bringing your whole self, befriending yourself, not needing to throw anything away or to get rid of. It's sometimes helpful to do a quick body scan to see if there's any place that we're holding extra tension. Checking in with the area around the eyes, bringing our awareness to the eyes, and perhaps imagining on the exhale that you could release any extra tension in the area around the eyes. letting go, inviting the eyes to soften. Then you might want to check in the area around the jaw, bringing your attention to the jaw and gently inviting that area to release any extra tension, softening, letting go. And then connecting with the neck and the shoulders, an area that many of us hold tension from our work days, working on the computer or elsewhere. You might want to imagine that you could breathe in and out through your neck and your shoulders. And on an exhale, just imagining that you could let go and release any extra tension. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders, not needing to make it a certain way. It's just a gentle befriending, knowing how much our body does throughout the day. And bringing your awareness to the back. Imagining that perhaps you could breathe up and down your spine, inviting spaciousness and relaxation to your back. And then your torso. Releasing any extra tension in your torso. Connecting with your arms. Offering gratitude for our arms and our hands and all they do for us throughout our days. And inviting any extra tension to relax, let go. Noticing if there's any areas that we have habitual contraction. Gentle invitation to relax and let go. Now bringing our awareness to our legs. Inviting relaxation, release of any tension. Not needing to make them a certain way. Just letting go on the exhale. If there's any other area of your body that feels constricted or tense, gently bringing your awareness to that area. Perhaps breathing in and out through that area, inviting connection, relaxation, and release. Letting go. And then returning to the body, the practice of mindfulness of the body, using an anchor, a home base, such as your breath or sounds, or whatever meditation practice feels appropriate for you in this moment. As we come towards the end of this period of meditation, I want to share with you a poem by Joy Harjo, who's the current poet laureate of the United States and also a member of the Muscogee Nation. It's called Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound, but other. Circles of motion, like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like eagle rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. So I love this line in this poem where it says that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. And it's one of those lines that sometimes, like I've read this poem enough that, it'll come to me like when I'm just being really aggressive or just kind of ignoring myself or someone else. I'll just be like, take the utmost care and kindness in all things. And then I'll be like, oh, what does that look like right now? What would it mean to take more care in this moment with what I'm doing? And one of the things with our practice is, there's this sense of that we don't need to go away to find that kindness or care, that we can try to cultivate it in the midst of our lives. Doesn't mean it's always easy, and doesn't mean we always get it right, but there's just that intention to bring it into, where we are right now. And sometimes, we have one of those meditations that's all peaceful and we get all calm, and sometimes we have one of those meditations where just like the churning mind of obsessive thinking, And that's kind of the same thing that happens on or off the cushion. Sometimes we're just resourced and able to meet each other with that kindness and generosity. And sometimes we've just been barraged by so many things that, something happens and there's just that contraction and just like, couldn't be bothered. And I know now, like when that happens, I can be like, wow, you really are overtaxed. Like you need to take yourself away, get a little chill here because you're going to take it out on, whoever it is. And so that's part about, just what our practice is like. How do we work with this, in the world? And, in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the refrain invites us to practice both internally and externally. And so, our practice is to get to know ourselves internally, but then this sense of community that, we've been talking about and that Gay Buddhist Fellowship has cultivated so beautifully over the years. How do we practice in community? I'm just going to put this prompt in the chat here. All right. So the prompt is, what supports or inspires you in your practice with kindness and community, and what challenges you? Of course, the first thing might be like, I'm great with the people I like, and with the people I don't like, that's usually one of the challenges that comes up. Like, if everybody were just the way I wanted, right? But there may be just things, for you, like for me, just like thinking about this, what does kindness mean right now? Or what does balance mean? Or what is needed for me to be able to resource myself? And I'm sure for each of you, you have, things that support or inspire you in this practice, and then areas of challenge. And so the way that we'll do the small group is that each person, invite you to do this. You don't have to do it this way, but just to invite each person to take 3 minutes to share and everybody else listen, and then find somebody in the group who's willing to time. And so then that would be about 12 minutes. And then you would have about, depending on about 6-7 minutes at the end to do some discussion. And then we'll come back and we'll have about 10 minutes to share in the whole group. This is a chance to share in the whole group some thoughts from the morning or anything else that's alive for you that you wanted to speak to. Thomas?
I guess one thing that came up for pandemics are hard. I mean, it's like missing the physical contact with people, and spending a lot of time. Some of us are spending a lot of time in front of the computer and having that be like the only connection, and then going out and being challenged with a little bit with kindness, with cultivating kindness by seeing other people who are connecting and, walking hand in hand or walking their dogs or stuff like that. And, trying to take joy in that, and sympathetic joy, as opposed to envy, is kind of a challenge. But I am grateful for like sangha and GBF, like especially our Wednesday night group, which has turned into a kind of a pod in itself. I mean, where we get to hear, what's going on with other people and the challenges they're facing, and get advice on our own challenges. And it really is a great opportunity that Sangha provides us. So I'm grateful for that.
As a member of that group, my name for it is, it's a Buddhist support group.
Thomas is going to share, so I think someone else jumped in, but did you want to say something?
Yeah, one thought, the highlight from this morning was that really beautiful radical gratitude spell. It was so moving. And I've determined that I'm going to write that into a birthday card for a friend of mine who, has really done an amazing job with coming up from an upbringing of challenge and deprivation to flourishing. And, I was just thinking of him as you were reading that, and it's just so fitting. Anyway, it was really, really beautiful. So thanks for that.
Oh, I'm so glad you like that. Adrienne Marie Brown is one of my favorite philosopher, wisdom keepers of our time. And if you are familiar with her work, she has two books that maybe a lot of articles, but two books. One is the Emergent Strategies, which talks a lot about how like as we come together, strategies emerge. And so this is kind of beyond like this idea of plan for this and then this logical thing, but the idea of like murmurations with birds and other ways that things kind of fractals and the way that nature actually has these ways of patterns emerging that we can participate in. And then she has another one that's the later one is called like, I don't think it's the pleasure principle, but something about the importance of pleasure in our lives and really making time to have that.
Boy, those are both really relevant right now. I mean, who would have thought,
yes.
Who would have thought we'd be employing the strategies we are right now at, January 1st?
Yeah. So she's very much a philosopher of our time. She's an African-American, queer woman, maybe in her 50s. I'm not sure exactly her age, but, I find her view of the world very, very helpful. I think I maybe missed somebody else had their hand raised it, but I might be not following very well. Harley?
Just mention that tomorrow is Thich Nhat Hanh's birthday, so we can all have him in our thoughts with his support him and be inspired by him, by his kindness in his difficult challenge right now. He's been very, very ill with his stroke for several years, but he's still hanging in there. I think in our group, we were all sort of mentioned that we were supported by the kindness of the sangha, that we were so fortunate that we have this as part of our life during such a difficult challenge of isolation and all that we've all been going through, that we have these different groups, and also, again, the technology that we're so fortunate to have, that we can be connected to each other from all over the world, actually. And, we don't have to drive or take BART or take bus or park or walk or, and have the whole world come into our living rooms, which is just incredible, really, when you think about it. Concerts and music and free and this and that. It's just incredible. But then again, the whole idea of intimate personal contact, and for many of us, touch and physical connection is difficult. But so there's the challenges. But I think all of us were mentioning how we're really so fortunate and inspired by Sangha, and also by the teachings that we try to connect with and learn and practice. So thank you.
Thank you. Maybe one more before break, if anybody.
I'll just share that I already told Cass, sorry for the repeat, Cass, but just in some ways, other people's suffering is inspiring my kindness practice. I feel when I sit down at my computer in the morning, I'm so drained and kind of grumpy. But I teach kindergarten, so I have to instantly become Big Bird on Sesame Street and be really upbeat and happy and cheerful and as an act of kindness to the children. And then
I also, just in my personal life, like one of my sisters had a heart attack and had to have triple bypass surgery. And so I'm like trying to like send her all this love. And so I'm really feeling inspired to send out, to be kind, but I'm getting kindness in return, but I'm like Cass said, like I miss physical kindness, just seeing, being with other humans, and like, it's a two-way exchange, so I kind of miss that. And then the problem is there's so much opportunity, like this sangha, the Wednesday night sangha. I'm in 12-step recovery. There's so many ways that I could connect, but I'm literally at my computer teaching or working on teaching related things for 10 to 12 hours every morning, every day, like 5:30 to 5:30, basically, trying to keep up. So when it comes time to like join someone on Zoom, I'm like, fuck that. I'm like, out of here. So, I've tried to make, appointments with people outside, like at the water or go for a walk or something. And, with some, mixed results, but it's usually the other way around. Like everybody at the end of the day is so pooped out. Nobody wants to do anything. So, anyway, those are the challenges, but I appreciate being forced to be kind every day for a long period of time because it takes me out of my shit.
My mother was a kindergarten teacher, so I can relate to that. You're saying that sense of just really meeting, people where they are and just trying to bring in happiness. So thank you. Greg, go ahead.
I just want to ask, Grisha, how do you keep kindergartners like involved when they're looking at a little screen, and normally they're running around and doing stuff physically? And I know this is totally off the topic, but it's joy. It's about joy. So if you don't mind, if it's not too upsetting for you.
No, it's just, it's a lot of this and a lot of, just absolute silliness. That's what I was saying, is like, I have to be ridiculous. I have to act ridiculous for every minute I'm on the screen with them, or they are bored and off. But I'm actually surprised that the children, like I've had kids say they love me. Like we're making a connection somehow, strangely, Orwellianly, through this box, and they're making connections with each other. And one of the ways that I try to support it is when our class is over, I say, I'm going to leave Zoom room open. The K27 is our Zoom room, and I'll leave it open in case you guys want to hang out. And some kids will stay on there for 2 extra hours, just talking to each other, nonsense, texting each other in the chat, which is like, random letter strings. And they talk about, oh, you're hacking me. And, just like crazy, silly stuff. But so, yeah, it's just, that's what I was saying. Like, I have to show up as this joyful presence, a light, a shining light, which is it's the Bodhisattva way, right? Like, I have to be a shining light, but secretly I'm like this dim, dark grump, needing some light myself, So, yeah. Thanks for asking. I could talk for endlessly about kindergarten.
So just to briefly comment on how I found this, because I think it might be relevant for others. So if I can step outside of my immediate feelings from time to time, I believe that this has been more beneficial than, for me, the world aside, than harmful. It has been a milder version of a, 8-month Buddhist silent retreat. It is a lot milder. I still do talk to people on the phone. I go for walks. I have a spouse that I talk to and so forth. Nevertheless, the amount of distraction that is normally there for me to avoid what I think in Buddhist terms I would call reality is far less. And the repetition from day to day has allowed me to see some things, even just about my body and exercises, that I couldn't before. And I mention it because when I've talked to people about this, then, and the people I know are not suffering physically, they're not economically deprived, they're not living in crowded spaces, they're not working on assembly lines. But for those people, most of them seem to find that also. Not that I would have chosen this, but then, of course, that's the same reason why I haven't gone on a long retreat.
Thank you. Yeah, we are all navigating this pandemic, shelter in place, and I was talking with Jeff during our small group about just how the air quality has further impacted, and it's I find it, but I always want to feel like I can maintain that happiness, and I'm not always able to. It comes and goes, and one of the things I think in my practice is this sense of equanimity. Like one of the images for me that's very helpful is that, equanimity, this being able to meet the moment, is not a flat line. The flat line, if you think about, when you're in the hospital and you're flat line, you're dead, so we want to be able to be responsive. We will have our ups and downs, and that's part of what it means to have our practice and to meet what's up here rather than just meet whatever's in our mind, the way that we think the world should be. So I really appreciate everybody's ideas and thoughts and explanations of how they're navigating, bringing joy, silliness, and gratitude, and all of the challenges as well. So this topic that we're on today of community, kindness, and joy is really central to the Buddhist teachings. And the Buddha has offered us a path towards transformation and how we live in the world, how we engage with each other, and how we engage with ourselves. And so for those of you who are familiar with some of the teachings, you'll be a little bit like, kindness and joy, those are the Brahma Viharas, the heavenly abodes. Kindness being metta, sometimes translated as loving kindness, friendliness, and then joy being from mudita, appreciative joy or sympathetic joy. And so I wanted to start by reading a passage from, someone mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh earlier, Harley, I think it was. And he has written this book called Old Path, White Clouds, which is his interpretation of the story of the Buddha's life. It's really a wonderful book. And this is a passage from that book where the Buddha is talking to his son Rahula. And Rahula, at the age of 7, became a monk as well. And thinking of the kindergartners, when I think of a 7-year-old monk, I'm always like, goodness, wow. So the Buddha, as you can imagine, is talking to his son, who is a monk, about the heavenly abodes. And this is Thich Nhat Hanh's writing in Old Path, White Clouds. And so the Buddha says, Rahula, practice loving kindness to overcome anger. Loving kindness has the capacity to bring happiness to others without demanding anything in return. Rahula, practice compassion to overcome cruelty. Compassion has the capacity to remove the suffering of others without expecting anything in return. Rahula, practice sympathetic joy to overcome hatred. Sympathetic joy arises when one rejoices over the happiness of others and wishes others' well-being and success. Rahula, practice non-attachment or equanimity to overcome prejudice. Equanimity is the way of looking at things openly and equally. This is because that is. Myself and others are not separate. Do not reject one thing only to chase after another. The Buddha says, I call these things the 4 immeasurables. Practice them and you will become a refreshing source of vitality and happiness for others. I really appreciate the way that Thich Nhat Hanh has written this passage, because it really shows how, when we orient ourselves to these Brahma Viharas, that we're orienting ourselves in a way that's immeasurable, that we're not measuring, we're not doing this in order to, and an expectation for a certain return. And in offering these without that measurement, then we're not engaging in a practice that we've often come accustomed to, like I'm doing this in order to. And so that way we can step into these places that are called the boundless modes or the heavenly abodes, and we can overcome some of these other habit tendencies of mind. So loving kindness can overcome anger, compassion can overcome cruelty, appreciative joy or sympathetic joy overcomes hatred, and equanimity can overcome prejudice. And so it's not that it's an instant practice, that just inclining our minds towards these that happen. It's just an ongoing way that we can transform our hearts and minds. Because all of us have certain habit tendencies of mind that we have developed through families of origin, through our dominant cultures that we are engaged in, through just skill sets that have supported us in the conditions that we've grown up in. And so they have all helped us in some way. Like I know that some of the ways that I guarded my heart and mind, and I, just sort of drove through and just treated this body as if it were a machine, or just ignored people. And all of those have served me really, really well to get me to this point in life. Like, I don't know that I would be here without some of those skills. But I also know that they have cost a lot in the body, heart, mind, that it costs a lot to maintain that like guardedness, or to, just always be, kind of set and ready to fight against somebody. And so these immeasurables, these divine abodes, heavenly abodes, are ways of cultivating that increase the sense of non-separation, that we can have this flow between ourselves and others, that it doesn't diminish us and it doesn't diminish the other person. But sometimes it takes a while to become accustomed to this. And the Dalai Lama says we need to grow accustomed to positive states of mind and be influenced by them. We have to cultivate the positive aspects of the mind which are beneficial. This is like gardening and farming. We cultivate those flowers and plants that are useful, but we discard the weeds. So sometimes, we get so used to a certain state of being things that it's like like a little blanket or a teddy bear that we hold on to because we're just used to holding. And that, like if we begin to let go, it can feel a little off balance. And so we have to bring our practice into our bodies, and so that we can actually feel when kindness happens, and we can let go of that anger and actually feel into that release, or compassion, and just feel the sense of like, oh, I'm not wishing harm on anyone, and feel what that feels like in the body and the heart. Just like when, we learn about gardening and we begin to water the seeds. Another image that I'm sure many of you have heard is how Thich Nhat Hanh talks about all of us have these seeds. We all have these capacities, because sometimes it doesn't feel like there's any capacity. It's like, what? You want me to be joyful? But even the inclination towards that can be part of the practice, even though I don't feel like I have much joy right now, to just be noticing that. So joy is supposedly, of the Brahma Viharas, the most difficult to cultivate. And so one of the things that I think about doing it is sort of like the garden, where rather than cultivating joy itself, you can cultivate some of the things that can support joy. And so some of the attitudes or characteristics that can support joy are curiosity, wonder, a sense of awe. I'm looking at the leaves, the palm tree behind Lee, and just being like, wow, just like the ocean and the awe that we can get in our connection to nature. And then this other capacity of gratitude and generosity that we talked a bit this morning, and contentment, and just sometimes we begin to focus on that which we don't have, especially when things are different. We get used to things being a certain way, and we begin to focus on that which is not there. And so scientists have also done a lot of research on this practice of gratitude, and how if we begin to count the things or note the things that we're grateful for, that it can actually begin to change the neural pathways in our minds, in our brain. And so generosity and gratitude are ways that we can cultivate joy. And the Buddha has said that if you knew what I knew, you would not let a moment pass where you wouldn't share, a meal with another. And to me, that's rather astounding to think about, just this encouragement. If you knew what I do, which I don't, I'm not the Buddha yet, but just the sense of do I want to just be because when I grew up, I had 3 siblings, and we were just if you weren't there and there was only a tiny piece of cake or cookies or candy left, that's what you got. You were like, get it, got to get it first. And, so I would definitely have a lot of that, habit tendencies of mine of really I got to get my piece. I got to get my fair share. If I don't get it back first and fast, somebody else is going to take it. And so it's been a really interesting thing to see in my heart and mind and body the difference between that. And years ago in my 20s, I was actually in, was it Arizona or New Mexico? I was driving on a road trip in Arizona or New Mexico, the Southwest, with my partner at the time. And we stopped and got some M&Ms. And we're driving through this beautiful landscape. And I remember eating these M&Ms as fast as I could, because I wanted to make sure I got, my fair share of M&Ms. I wasn't even driving, so it wasn't like I had to, do 2 things at once. And I just had this flash of wait a second, you love this person. Why are you trying to get more M&Ms than they are? My desire was get the M&Ms, not this desire of the beauty of sharing, of what it's like to share. And so now I've really begun to feel that sense of what it means to take joy in another person's joy and sharing them. And so that has been part of what I've taken into the community that I live in Oakland. And there are many more people who are underhoused or curbside neighbors, and there are a lot of people who will come by the house, and I'll support them in various different ways, and just really kind of feeling this is what it means to be a neighbor. This is what it means to live in a society that has unequal income, and that most of my unhoused neighbors are BIPOC, and I'm white, and I moved into this neighborhood. So what does it mean for me to have wealth? And what does it mean to think of it as mine? And how can I support those in my community in various different ways? And so this is the way that I can think about gratitude and generosity being supports for joy. And then also, creating boundaries. And, just being able to say, this is what I have right now because of the current situation with the pandemic and work and whatnot, and this is what I can share. And so it's a really interesting relationship of having to engage in that process. But it really does mean that we have to retrain to be able to see through a lens of abundance rather than scarcity. And so when we think about scarcity, and my parents grew up in the Depression, so there was a lot of frugality in my house, and I'm very grateful for those environmental conservation and the ways that we were frugal and didn't waste things. But there was also a real sense of greed that can come along with it, that we had to stockpile and, have all of the things ready in case, which is the really smart thing to do. But it's also a sense of, we need to keep it for ourselves and not think about the community all the time. And so in our culture, which often overemphasizes competition, we sometimes can't see joy or appreciative joy because we think of ourselves as separate, that, this is mine and I need to protect it. And then, what do? I might put up, a wall here. I might put up a wall around my house. I might put up a wall between countries. We create all these borders between ourselves and others. And then we focus on the sense of like, the way that I can survive is I can maintain and enforce the sense of separateness, which is an illusion, doesn't actually exist if we think about the Buddha's teachings on interbeing and anatta, that what happens to you actually impacts me, and what happens to me impacts you. So there is a way that even when I'm trying to keep you out, that effort of keeping myself distant from view is energetically impacting. So cultivating this sense of joy in others is a way of decreasing this sense of comparing and competition. And one of the things I think about with the Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abodes, is that they are abundant. In the chant from the Buddha, it says abundant, immeasurable. So by you having joy or me having happiness, I'm not taking away anyone else's. They're immeasurable, measureless. And so sometimes we can't see that because we're so ingrained to the fact that if you have joy or success, then I'm not. And I remember years ago when I moved to New Mexico and I really wanted to get a job. I was working in the school district. And I really wanted to get a job working in the school district so I could have benefits, doing environmental education, which is unheard of. Usually there aren't any jobs of doing environmental education in the school districts. And I remember talking to a friend and I said, I don't think this will ever happen because there aren't very many jobs doing that. And the person said to me, well, you don't need a lot of jobs. You only need one job. I was like, oh, right. And what did you know it? That year I started teaching 5th grade. And then there was this job announcement that happened in the school district for an environmental education position in the district. And it was quite extraordinary because, just that sense of like, oh, it's not going to happen. It never happens. And then just the possibilities can arise when we can open to them. Many of you have heard of the Indian philosopher Krishnamurti, and there's a phrase that he said and I read in a book of his years ago, and it's been one of those mantras for me that when I feel this comparing mind arising, and he just said, comparison brings suffering. Period. Comparison brings suffering. So when I begin to have my mind be like, oh, I'm not good enough, or they're better, or this or that, and sometimes I can just bring that phrase in of like, dead end street. Comparison brings suffering. Neither than better than, nor less than, nor the same, the Buddha says. Comparison brings suffering. It's our individual beauty and uniqueness that we want to express. What, people have come to say is our authentic selves. Because when we get caught in this comparing mind, we really get in this place of not enoughness. This endless cycle of not good enough, not strong enough, not masculine enough, not feminine enough, not, rich enough, not generous enough, not, but just fill in the blank. It's just like this endless cycle of how we can berate ourselves and each other. And so for me, this reminder of like, oh, comparison brings suffering can kind of get me out of that cycle. And we can begin to explore whether when somebody else is successful, can I actually feel joy? And sometimes I, might not have the capacity. I might just be so hard. But can I feel any of that resonance with that other person? Especially in spiritual communities. I mean, sometimes we think I'll go in a spiritual community, everyone will be like, oh, we love each other, everything's great. But then it can be like, well, that dependent origination. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what does that person know so much more than I am? And like, look at how that person sat and they didn't move at all. And we're in this place where all of a sudden we start having this comparing mind and the mudita sort of disappears. And that's okay, because that's the cycle of it. But then we can begin to reorient and recondition, because we can see that those are just the habit tendencies of mind. It's not that we're wrong or we're bad. These are just the habit tendencies of mind. And in the culture that we're in, they certainly are supported to, get ahead, get more, accumulate, be better than. And so mudita, and this focus on, is this really what's happening? And so, one of the things that the phrase that I know some of you have heard is like the near enemy or the far enemy of these, or the opposite, and so, some of the things that are the, opposite of mudita, someone brought up earlier, is envy or resentment or jealousy. And so the thing is that once you start practice, there's not like you're just going to like add water and stir and there's no jealousy anymore. The amazing thing is that to begin to notice, this is envy. I want that. And then be like, what does envy feel like in the body? What does jealousy feel like in the body? And sometimes just that noticing there, and then this is where the Brahma Viharas can kind of be like a hologram, and then we can be like compassion or kindness for ourselves and be like, that's hard. It's hard to be alone right now in a time where we have physical distancing, to bring in some of the other Brahma Viharas that can support this place, rather than just being like, okay, it's okay, you can handle it, just push through it, which is, you can see my habit tendencies of mine from growing up in Massachusetts, right? And so mudita, an appreciative joy, includes us, invites us to look at, what is available and what's possible right now, rather these tendencies of looking for the problems. So mudita is like, what's not wrong? So, for example, with the bad air, I get headaches very easily. But today, I had forgotten that I didn't have a headache until just now when I was thinking of the not problem, because the not problem for me is a lot of times, I don't have a headache, which I forget to appreciate because I always been like, I have another headache. And, other things that we forget to appreciate. Like for me, one of the great examples is, especially having had this happen to me once when I was on my way to work, when you flush the toilet and the water goes down, we have all these opportunities for joy instead of like having your toilet flood. There's so many times that you could actually be joyful. Like the things are going the way they're supposed to. You turn the water on, the water comes out. That actually could be a very joyful experience. And so we have these capacities to train our hearts and minds for joy just in these small moments. I planted sunflowers in March, as so many other people did, out in the garden. And they grew to like 12 feet tall. And I have to say, it was so much joy over the course of the 6 months that I had the sunflowers. And actually, to tell you the truth, they're withered gray stalks that I haven't taken down yet. So I still have them. But and then I was just like, then the birds came. The birds started eating all the sunflowers, and then I was like, wow. And then I was watching the birds, and there were some like bigger birds that would kind of like push the other birds out of the way. And it just became this whole thing that I was reminding myself that the seeds were like this big. There's just like started off just like this. And it's the same like within ourselves. It's like we may not feel like we have much capacity for joy, but we have, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, the seeds for this, the inclination. So I do want to bring up this other thing that's called the near enemy of joy in Buddhist parlance. And that's something that people think feels kind of like joy, but is actually not joy. And so the one that kind of feels like joy, but it's not joy, is like exuberance or indulgence. And so when I feel that, like I can get really excited about something, and I can feel like I'm sort of tipping over, like something, you just feel like, and you kind of can feel like you're sort of off balance because you're so excited. You can think back to when you were little and there was going to be a big surprise and you can't think of anything but that surprise, and you can see underneath there that has part of the quality of addiction. This way that happiness is dependent on something outside of ourselves, and that we wanting that next thing to be the fix, which also gets into that place of competitivism and the consumerism. And so you can see how it's tied into this way of orienting ourselves in the world, of getting that next hit, getting the next thing that will bring us joy. Whereas joy is a lot more of just the flow of things, the way things can arise, like the sunflowers or a bird or a little kid's smile or something that can just spark joy in that moment that you didn't really notice before. All of a sudden the sunlight comes in through and hits something in your room and you're like, wow, that is so cool. So I'm going to invite us into a little joy practice right now. And so this is kind of we're going to just do a little material joy thing. So I want you to just kind of look around in your space right now and see if there's something that just sparks joy. If you want, if it's able, you could take that thing and you could then put it up in front of the camera, and then we'll all look at each other's joy, and then we'll feel mudita. So everybody take just a minute. Don't find anything. It doesn't have to just anything really far away, but just like look around in your space and find something that sparks joy. Okay, so we're going to make sure we're all on gallery view so that we can see each other's. And then just bring up your thing. We'll just put it in. So you make sure you can see what you have, and we'll just see all the different colors and different things that spark joy. Oh my, I've got lots of wonderful joy coming on here. Thank you all. So I love that. So you can see how, then you can just see someone else's smile, and you're not looking at anything but just sort of getting that energetic hit of the joy that happens by someone else's joy. So, thank you. Because this is part of this practice that I use a lot, of being on the lookout for joy. And so people know now that are with me that if I see a little kid or a dog or, a rabbit or something, that all of a sudden be like, joy hit. It might seem a little addictive, but I have a history of a lot of depression. And so I need to really resource myself. And in these times, it's extra important that we take good care of ourselves. And getting these joy through others' joy is so amazing, because the ripples of that, you know what it is when you see somebody with a little kid and you catch their eye, and then they see you and you kind of go like this to them, and then they make a face, and then they're, whoever's with them takes a look, and it just sort of ripples out. And we have those opportunities around us to see that. And we can even catch ourselves in the middle of things. Like I live with a 14-year-old, and sometimes there'll be something that's happening, and he'll come up and I'll be like, and I'll get ready to say something. And then in the back of my head, I'll realize, wow, you're going to scold him right now, aren't you? For something little like leaving something out somewhere, whatever bowl or whatever. And when I can catch it and realize that maybe we'll have a conversation sometime about that, but this is not really how I want to create the world, I feel so much happier. Like that I can be just like, oh, I love you, or, say something. Well, everything I say to a 14-year-old right now is pretty much not right on target, but we'll let that go because I'm not in the same mind state. But, it's really amazing how with our practice we can recondition these tendencies that we have that have been ingrained in us from our families and society to cultivate this sense of connection, that we can be generous and joyful and engage with each other in these different ways. So I just want to finish with this quote from Brittany Packnett, who's a journalist and activist, and she says, "Joy is my resistance." She says, "Joy is not indulgent. Joy is defiant," like that hat that Cass was wearing. Joy is not indulgent. Joy is defiant. Joy is a break from the news cycle that will discombobulate me if I let it. Joy is a middle finger to a bigot with a torch who wants to see me cower. Joy is a moral victory against extremism and a political win, fueling us to persist and resist. Joy is resistance to the hate that fills the front page. And we all know this in our community. We know how joy has supported us through finding ways to resist in joyful ways and showing ourselves out to everybody that just we can find that joy and the sparkle and the glitter that we each have within us and in our communities. And that can really sustain us through trying times. And so I just sort of finished this other quote from, I don't know if all of you are familiar with it, but if you're not, I suggest that you look them up. There's this organization that's been around for about 4 years now that's called the NAP Ministry. The NAP is in like napping. And it says, "Rest is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy." So this idea of consumerism and comparing, that if we just rest and nap, that will be supportive of our joy and our way of getting along with each other. So these are just a few words that I have. Thank you for your kind attention with our conversation about joy. So we wanted to have some time for you to share in groups about your practice and joy. So similar to this morning, the prompt will be, what supports and inspires joy in your practice and what challenges it? Specifically, this sense of appreciative joy, which is the joy in others. So sometimes it's called sympathetic joy, appreciative joy. There's some other terms for it, but the appreciative joy is the one that resonates the most with me. But sympathetic kind of gets to that sense of resonance. And so in community, how does joy support us? And then also what challenges it? So when is it that we find it challenging to feel joy or to experience joy? Or anything else that's arising in terms of this. So does that sound good? Does anybody have any questions? All right, take us away, Jeff. Okay. We'll take a few minutes to see if anybody wants to share anything that came up from your small groups or anything else that arose. Inviting people who haven't shared yet. Ruben?
Hi. So I really appreciated the difference between feeling joy for someone else's joy rather than feeling envious of that and feeling joy for just, some of my own stuff. And I think feeling joy for others, which is, I guess, a form of empathy, is what I need to work on more.
What do you notice about that?
What did I notice about that? That it's difficult for me sometimes to feel joy for others, that instead of feeling joy, I go to the place of feeling envy. I wish I had that. And I realize that's not a helpful way of looking at the world, and I'll try and change it.
Yeah. And, I just really appreciate that you share that, because, our economy is built on us feeling that, so it's not, it's really great to be able to just say, like, this is what's happening, and not blame or shame ourselves, because, there's so many messages that we get that, oh, if you need this and you will be, fill in the blank kind of thing. So just saying that, just being like, yeah, look, this is what I need to work on. That's just really a beautiful, open sentiment. I appreciate that, Ruben.
Thanks.
Thomas?
One of the things that I shared and I thought more about even since we broke out of the group was, rather than just sympathetic joy of looking for the joy of others, is actually actively trying to contribute to it in subtle and small ways. I talked about, in traffic, giving somebody the lane or something. But I realized too that on my morning walk here, I go along a golf course and a walkway and stuff. When I see garbage, a piece of litter or something, it used to be I would look at it and be like, oh, some bastard threw that down, or, why can't people clean up after themselves or something? And then I started picking it up because I didn't want the next person following along on that path to feel that same thing that I was feeling, sort of that like disgust with society or, whatever. And so I would do these things like to just clean up so that somebody else wouldn't have that same sense of suffering, or, their joy wouldn't be interrupted. So it's kind of a fun little practice.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of what you're talking about, sort of the way that generosity and these other ways that we can kind of plant, the seeds for joy.
I see in the chat room there's a request for the name of the author of the joy poem.
I put it in here. Brittany Packnett, do you see it? Joy is my resistance. That's the article. So. Okay. Well, we're going to go to a break, but before we go to a break, and Garcia, this is, you inspired me to share this little bit of joy that I'm sure you are familiar with, but everybody else may not be. So I'm going to share my screen here. And you're welcome to go to a break if this is not your cup of tea. Can you hear it?
Sometimes the monster that's inside you is a monster that is mad. It's a monster who is angry. It's a monster who feels bad. When your monster wants to throw things and your monster wants to shout, there's a way to calm your monster and chill your inner monster out.
Belly breathe, gonna breathe right through it, belly breathe. This is how you do it, breathe. Gonna breathe right through it, belly breathe. This is how you do it. Put your hands on your tummy, now you're ready to begin. Put your hands on your belly and you slowly breathe in. Bubba breathe, belly, belly, bubba, bubba breathe. Belly, belly breathe. Let your belly go out and in and out. You will start to calm down without a doubt. Make your belly go in and out and in. Belly breathe, gonna breathe right through it, belly breathe. This is how you do it, breathe. Belly, belly, breathe. Belly, belly, breathe.
Your mad monster may appear at any time and any place, and that mad monster will make you make a mad monster face. He makes you want to push, he makes you want to shove. There's a way to calm that monster, bring out the monster love.
Belly breathe, gonna breathe right through it, belly breathe.
Okay, well, that was just a little bit of joy in the kindergarten world over there for, so let's take
And so just briefly to add to it, so my sleep therapist taught me a little more detailed version of that. And for dealing with anxiety. And what it does is it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the one that is calming.
Right. Yeah. But you probably didn't have a little Muppet. You just...
No.
Okay. So we're coming towards the end of our day together. So I thought we would do about a 30-minute meditation and have a chance to check out and then end in about an hour or 30. So I was thinking about doing more of a guided meditation, but I'm kind of feeling more like silence. So if people really wanted a metta loving kindness meditation, I could either do a little bit of that at the beginning, then go into silence, or do longer one. Does anybody have any preferences around that? So a little
lead in.
A little bit of metta.
Yeah, a little.
Sounds sound good, and then we'll go into silence. Oh, we have a beautiful cat joining us. All right. Well, I really believe in the power of practicing loving kindness meditation, even if it's not something that we're feeling. A sense of watering the seeds and cultivating the capacities of our heart mind are really, really powerful. So coming into the body, sometimes helpful to take a few deep breaths to arrive in the body. It's sometimes helpful at the beginning of a meditation period, particularly if we're going to focus on kindness or friendliness or loving kindness, to remember our intentions for practice, especially our altruistic intentions for why we practice. Expanding our circle to include others can help us with the cultivation of kindness. So in the cultivation of this friendliness towards ourselves, the invitation is to take a meditation posture that allows you to be comfortable, to come home to yourself, come close, cultivating friendliness, caring towards your body, your heart, your mind. For some people, that could be imagining that they could breathe in and out through their heart center. And for others, they'll put a hand on their heart, or holding their hands together, or hand on the belly, just to connect more deeply towards kindness for oneself. And for some people, imagining that they could breathe in and out through the heart center supports the sense of wishing for well-being for oneself on the inhale, and then allowing that to spread towards others on the exhale. If it's challenging to feel a sense of kindness, it can be helpful to think of yourself as a young one
Maybe thinking about this little you climbing up in your lap and hanging out for a little bit and wishing kindness to that inner child, if you will, or the little you from the past. Or even just imagining a kitten or a rabbit or a bunny that you're holding, if that feels something that would be kind for you. To bring forth this sensation of kindness in the heart and the mind and the body. And on the inhale, just gently cultivating that seed of kindness towards yourself. And on the exhale, releasing and letting go. For some people, they like to use phrases. For other people, it's just a sense of radiating kindness. If it's difficult to wish yourself kindness, you could choose another being, because this sense of non-separation, we can remember that we're connected through a web of kindness. I'll offer some phrases, and if you wish to use them, you may. If you want to use other phrases or none at all, whatever supports your practice towards creating kindness, caring, and friendliness. May I be happy, truly happy. You can say them out loud or silently to yourself. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be healthy and strong as much as is possible. May I live with ease and be free. May I be happy, truly happy. May I be protected and safe from inner and outer harm. May I be healthy and strong as much as is possible. May I live with ease and be free. Remembering that during our practice of this intention to cultivate kindness, all sorts of emotions may arise, and that's okay. The cultivation of kindness is to be with all parts of ourselves, all aspects, and to greet them with kindness. So continuing on with the phrases, if that resonates with you, or radiating kindness, or returning to another meditation practice that feels more appropriate at this moment. want to finish this period of meditation with a poem based on the Metta Sutta, the Loving Kindness Sutta, by Zenju Earthling Manuel, called For All Beings. May all beings be cared for and loved, be listened to, understood, and acknowledged despite different views. Be accepted for who they are in this moment. Be afforded patience. Be allowed to live without fear of having their lives taken away or their bodies violated. May all beings be well in its broadest sense, be fed, be clothed, be treated as if their life is precious, be held in the eyes of each other as family. May all beings be appreciated, feel welcomed anywhere on the planet, be freed from acts of hatred and desperation, including war, poverty, slavery, and street crimes. May all beings live on the planet, housed and protected from harm, be given what is needed to live fully without scarcity, enjoy life living without fear of one another, be able to speak freely in a voice and mind of undeniable love. May all beings receive and share the gifts of life, be given time to rest, be still, and experience silence. May all beings be awake. So I wanted to have us to have time to do a closing and just could do another go round like we did at the beginning to check in, check out. So we'll have about a minute for each person to share, just to share, what's alive for you right now. If you can, this is a phrase, I know we don't actually take anything with us or take anything away, but something that you're taking away or that you're wanting to continue to practice or something that's alive for you from our practice today. So you'll just have about 1 minute to share, and I'll just time it so that we have enough time for everybody to go. So we'll do what we did this morning. For those of you who are here, you'll just pass it along. Does anybody have any questions about that? It's a pretty open-ended prompt. Richard, are you ready? Would you be willing to?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay. I know I've often heard the expression, the concept, take refuge in the sangha. And I have to say that I really do take refuge in the sangha. And I think today is a great example. I'm just feeling very like ready to face the world again, kind of recalibrated or because so I just have a lot of gratitude for your agreeing to do this, for everyone who showed up. These are all the regular. I know most of these guys in some way or other, so it made it even sweeter. So I just really feeling very ready to face the world. I'll pick on my husband, Henry.
And I will in turn echo Richard's sentiments. I'm grateful to JD for their words and thoughts and contributions today, and for bringing us all together. I feel gratitude for this sangha. It's played much bigger role in my life than ever before, and it continues to. And I'll put in a plug for the Wednesday evening meetings. Come, if you haven't tried it, come join us some Wednesday evening. Okay, and I will pass to Tom.
I'd like to echo some of what Richard said about shelter in the sangha and the Dharma, and you're bringing that to us, JD. It just it lightened my the burden down here in Southern AZ, and I appreciate that, and everyone here. And I'll pass it to my Northern Arizona compatriot, Thomas.
Yeah, so here I'm in Central. We're just missing somebody from up north in the cool country. Yeah, JD, thank you so much for this. I really like the way you wove the three components together of community, kindness, and joy. My one takeaway of many, but really the fact that joy is not indulgent, it is defiant, but it is not something to shrink away from just because of everything else going on around us and the people who, may have it worse, or what is looming ahead, or, just all those things. It really is something to be celebrated, because every day I let go by without joy in it is a day lost. So yeah, I will just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful. And I will pass to Tony Wilson.
Yes, I want to say thank you too. I say the refuges quite often, and at Vajrapani, I used to go around the stupa and chant them. And this was a great practical experience of sharing with other people ideas and stuff in your teachings. And I just want to say thank you. You gladdened my heart. Let's go to Cass.
So my intention today was to be less scattershot and to be more focused. And instead, what's happened is I've gotten all of these inspirations to take away, and then I've got my mind popping in all kinds of different directions. So thank you so much for that, JD. Really appreciate it. But two of the takeaways is that the first is the radical gratitude spell. I think that is just a beautiful piece of work, and I can't wait to use it as the centering moment at the Sisters General Meeting on Tuesday. And the other one is to, if joy or happiness feels kind of out of reach, to focus on the things that will get you there, and to focus on curiosity and other things. That's a very good lesson, to not to kind of deal with the components instead of the end result. So thank you so much, JD, and to everybody in the Sangha for a wonderful day. And I will pass it to Christian.
JD, thank you very much for reminding me of sympathetic joy. I think I think it's really important in my life, and to look for joy, to be open to joy in others around me, to notice it in other people and to stay with it, to really sink into that joy that I see in other people and not let my, try to notice when my mind starts to take control of it. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And you're going to pass it to someone. Who would you like to pass it to?
I'm really out of it today here. I'll pass it to right next to me, at least on my screen, Jeff.
Like so many people, I feel tremendous gratitude. My intention was to enjoy the refuge of the sangha, but I feel like I really found the refuge of the Buddha and the Dharma and the sangha. And JD, you're incredibly skillful teaching and weaving things throughout that were so helpful and reminded us of our deepest, what our hearts are about. And also a major kudos to this sangha, as Richard said, it's our sort of seasoned group. And I really appreciated how everybody's just settled down right away into the practice, and your earnestness. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Hi, Grisha.
Thank you. Thank you, JD. I have my Dharma flashcards from your talk and from our small group talk. Be on the lookout for joy. I love that one. Comparison brings suffering. And then Reuben's counteraction to that, which is eliminate the comparison. Just to, when I experience compare and despair, or compare and compete, to just stop it. And then be aware of the not problems. Hey, that's not a problem today. And contentment is a radical act. I love that. Not striving for more, and that health is the greatest gift and contentment is the greatest wealth. So all of those are just, I like the slogans. I like to write them down, and I like to try to remember them as I cruise along throughout the days. And so I appreciate the Dharma today and the Sangha here, and all the little bursts of joy and heart tickles that came out of the day. Thanks. And how about Reuben?
Thank you, JD. I really enjoyed the day. As I said, I've been coming to the Sangha for a long time, but since the pandemic, I've been coming almost every Sunday. And I feel each time I get to know people a little bit more and feel a bit more connected. And one of my takeaways, I really like, JD, how the day was very varied with different types of activities. And one of my big takeaways is to really appreciate the joy in others and not just look for my own personal joy. And also to try and add to the joy of others with more kindness and less criticism of others. So thank you. I can't hold my hands to my heart because I'm holding my iPad, but thank you very much. And I'll pass it on to Stefan Tiepel.
Thank you, JD. It was great hearing you. I love the way you kind of rephrased a lot of things that I've been reading lately on happiness and joy. And I like your term about cultivating joy, and because I've been learning that it's not a byproduct, it's the process of learning to be in the moment and enjoy what you're doing. And I like the reminder that joy is the hardest of the four divine abodes, because it's something I've been struggling with. And so it helps to see it all kind of reframed the way that you talked. So thank you again. And I think, is Matthew, have you shared?
Hi. Just very, very grateful to spend this day with all of you. Really grateful, JD, for you and your teachings. Really grateful. This is all going to be about gratitude. Just really grateful that I should begin this practice. Well, I guess it doesn't make any difference when you begin the practice, but all I can say is I don't know how I would have gotten through the last 6 months without these skills. It's almost like I think about, wow, isn't it amazing that we have this technology? How would we have how would education and, how would people be able to work, It's amazing, It makes you think that somebody's making this whole thing up. And I'll leave with just one little thing when we were doing the movement meditation. And I was like rotating my neck and my head, and I went, wow, this is really neat. How do I do this? Anyway, it was really, I just had such a playful, wonderful experience of going through my body. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Oh, and Ron. How about Ron?
That'll work for me. Thank you. Well, everything that everybody said, and thank you so much, JD. That was just a wonderful holistic experience. You kind of attacked my negativity from various directions. And it wants to surrender. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the tools that you've given us, and I've made copious notes here, not flashcards, but little post-it notes. So to review later and keep me on the Dharma path. So thank you very much, and everyone. Let's see. Lee, have you talked?
No.
You're next.
So thank you, JD. It was, your teaching was really lovely, and it all fit very well for me. And I'm so appreciative of the sangha, which I've been a member of, and it's been my the center of my Buddhist practice for almost all of the 25 years that I've been in San Francisco, since I think after the first year. And I appreciate this today in the pandemic and being able to have a retreat despite being sheltering in place. So thank you. And let's see, Harley.
Yeah, I just would like to offer gratitude to JD and to the Sangha for the support and inspiration for today, and going forward tomorrow with our challenges. It'll all make a difference. Thank you.
Jerry.
So this candle's been to Vajrapani, and I just reached behind before we did this and go, oh, I'll light a candle for all of us. I don't know if you can see the candlelight. And we use this as part of our ritual at Vajrapani, and I thought, how appropriate, and being the last one. So I hope everyone looks at this candle and takes good wishes today with them. And you know what? When I go on a retreat to Vajrapani, I'm always kind of like nervous. And in the end, I have a calmness, and I have a calmness today. So thanks, JD, and everyone who came today. It was a really special day, and especially in these times. I mean, we can have a retreat and not be a Vajrapani, even though I think I prefer it, but thank you.
I have my Vajrapani t-shirt on.
So did everybody get a chance to share? I think so, right? Okay, great. Well, I really, really just want to honor each and every one of you for showing up today, and for not just for today, but just for your ongoing practice in the world and how you show up in the world and take the Dharma with you, create the sangha, and water all these aspects of yourself to create what's needed in our world at this time. There's just so much animosity and hatred and greed that surrounds us, that the practices of the Buddha Dharma are such support, as somebody mentioned, just during this time more than other times have been supportive, but equally for me they've been a lifeline. And so it's been really a beautiful day to share with all of you, and the depth of your practice is very evident, even if we're in this virtual world. The energy of the sangha comes forth, and so I appreciate the longevity of this practice, and just the intentions of each of you to be with what's arising, and wholeheartedly. So just a couple logistics, and then there may be some announcements, I think, for the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Richard put in the chat the dana, which is the generosity for myself for teaching. I'm retired from the public schools now, and I'm teaching Dharma full time. And so I kind of engage in this mutuality of outside of the capitalist system of getting a paycheck. And it's really quite a beautiful experience of being with you all in that regard. So there's two different ways. One is the PayPal or Venmo, or the logistical parts for that. And then also in there is my website, theheartmindteaching.com. So if you want to see where else I'm teaching, you can go there, and there's different events. Like tomorrow night, I'll be teaching the Alameda Sangha. It's not very queer at all, but there are some queer people who teach there, such as myself. Yeah. And other people too. And then I'm also been teaching at the East Bay Meditation Center. We've been doing a series of classes looking at white privilege. And we're going to be looking at the end of November, I don't have the date, but it's on my website, whiteness, the whiteness of money. And then we're doing another one in December on whiteness and we don't have the name yet for it. We'll have a more catchy name, but it's like the prison industrial complex, like looking at the justice process and white supremacy. So I'll be doing those with Crystal Johnson through the East Bay Meditation Center. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, theheartmindteaching.com. And Richard, excuse me, did you have any announcements for GBF?
Well, you did so eloquently discuss dana, so I think you've spared me from having to do that. But my personal invitation was don't give until it hurts, give until it feels good.
And you've heard a lot of things about how you can show up every Wednesday or Sunday for this group. And so that sounds like people know all about that.
Tomorrow's Prasada Chitta, who's an old-time favorite of ours.
So we'll just take a moment to dedicate the merit of our day together, which is part of this sense of our connection to each other and to all beings. So just reflecting on our time together and our intentions for cultivating community, cultivating kindness, cultivating joy, and allowing it to register how the world could be transformed if we were to shift our focus to cultivating kindness, joy, and community in each moment, in each day. We offer any merit, any goodness from our time today, from our intentions, our actions, our thoughts, and our words, to all beings everywhere and all directions. May all beings experience kindness. May all beings experience joy. May all beings know the comfort of community and care. May our practice be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Thanks so much, everyone. You can all unmute and do the whatever you'd like to do. We'll hang out for a few minutes so that you can chit chat and whatnot like you would do in the foyer.
Thank you so much, JD.
Thank you, JD.
Take a nap. Yeah, it's nap time.
Thanks, Richard, for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you all.
George.
And Jeff, thank you for assuming the Zoom duty so I can just sit here and look cute.
We need you. Yeah.
See everyone tomorrow.
George.
Everyone, be well.
Thank you, Ron. See you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, yeah, siesta time.
Yeah.
And thank you, George, for, everything you do to bring the Dharma out to the world, to spread the good word.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.